Designers and printers discovered long ago that if they were printing with 1, 2, or 3 spot color inks, such as Pantone spot colors, they could expand the number of potential colors by printing different tints of the colors on top of each other. For example, in this document, the RuAdd spot document from the exercise folder, I can see that I have a spot color called Pantone 279. It's applied to this word Ru in this text frame. I'd like to make the other words in that text frame blue, but some a lighter blue and some darker. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this text frame so we can see it better. I'll select it and then press Command 2 on the Mac or Control 2 on Windows to zoom in on it. Now I'm going to split my window into two by clicking on the Split Window button in the lower right corner. That way I can apply colors to text on one side and immediately see how they look on the other. I'll use Option Spacebar or Alt Spacebar just to move this over a little bit. And then I'll click on the right and do the same thing. And now I'm going to double-click on this text frame to switch to the Type tool, press Command-A or Control-A on Windows, and then click on the Pantone 279 swatch. You'll notice that on the left side of the window, all the text changed to that Pantone blue except for the word at. That's because that one word was actually a tint. It was a 10% tint of black. When you apply a new color to a tint, InDesign leaves it set to the tint. If you want to remove the tint, apply the color, pause for a moment, and then click a second time like this. This click, pause, click trick is kind of weird, but it's a good one to know. Now, I know how to make the word at lighter, simply select it to make a tint. But what if I want to make it darker? To make it darker, I need to mix blue with some other color, like black. You already know how to mix process colors together, cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. All you have to do is go to the Swatches panel menu and choose New Color Swatch. Then choose the color mode to CMYK. But what if the mix you're trying to create is using a spot color, not just process colors? In that case, this dialog box does not work. So I'll click Cancel, and instead, I'll go to the Swatches panel menu and choose New Mixed Ink Swatch. That's the trick. Mixed ink swatches allow you to mix spot colors in with either spot colors or with process colors. In this case, I'm just going to mix black and Pantone 279, so I'll turn on the checkboxes to their left. And the color I'm looking for is 100% of the blue and 50% of that process black. You can name it anything you want, but I usually like to name it something descriptive, like 50K and 100 of PMS 279. When I click OK, InDesign adds that mixed ink swatch to the bottom of the swatches panel. So now all I have to do is click on it to apply it to that word at, and you'll see that the word at on the left gets darker. It's literally a mix of Pantone 279 and 50% black. So as you can see, making a mixed ink swatch is easy, but what if you wanted a whole bunch of these? 10, 20, or more different mixed ink swatches? Well, in that case, I would recommend making a mixed ink group. Let me show you how. I'm going to set this back to 279, and then I'm going to delete this mixed ink swatch that I just created, just by dragging it over the trash icon. Next, I'll go to the Swatches panel menu, and I'm going to choose New Mixed Ink Group. This is like making a mixed ink swatch, but it's a little bit more complicated. The first step is the same. Choose which inks you want to mix together. I'm going to use black and 279 again. Then you need to tell InDesign what the first swatch is going to look like. I want the first swatch to be 0% black and 20% Pantone 279. I'll just hit Tab to jump over to the next field. Next, you need to tell InDesign how many times you want this to repeat. For example, if I set this to 4 times with a 20% increment, then I know that the first swatch is going to have 0 black, and then it's going to be 20% of the Pantone 279, and then 40%, 60%, 80%, and 100%. So this is going to generate 5 different colors, but none of them will have black. Let's go ahead and set the repeat here to 3, and also set it to 20%. Now InDesign is going to start mixing the black and the 279 together. How many swatches are we going to get? Well, down here it tells me that it's going to generate 20 swatches, and I can click on the Preview Swatches button to see what they look like. This is usually a good idea, just to make sure you're not going to get 100 or 200 swatches. That happens sometimes, and it's not pretty. I can scroll through this list and see that I go from light to dark swatches. And when I click OK, you'll see that all of those swatches are added to my swatches panel. If I hover over one of these swatches, InDesign shows me a tooltip that shows me the breakdown of that color. This one is 40% black and 100% Pantone 279. Now I can start applying them. I'll make that one darker. I'll select this word and make it a little bit lighter. And I'll select this one over here and make it much darker. Finally, I'm going to select this word, the one that has 100% of that Pantone color, and I'm going to apply a different swatch, the one that's inside that group. It's the same color, but it's inside the swatch group, and here's why that's important. Sometimes you need to change your Pantone colors. Your art director runs in and says, no, we don't want to use blue anymore, we want to use green or red. Well, it's easy to change if all the colors are inside the swatch group. Let's go ahead and make a new color swatch. And I'm going to make this a spot color, which is going to be a Pantone solid color, and I'll just pick warm red, just because it's easy at the top of the list. Now I'll click OK, and it closes the dialog box, and unfortunately it changed that color. This is a really frustrating thing to me about InDesign. Whenever you make a new color swatch, it automatically applies it to the text that's selected. So that's not what I wanted. I'm going to go back here and change this back to my group swatch. There we go. Now, here's what I wanted to show you. I can edit this mixed ink group, and I can do that by clicking on the master swatch at the top of the group. That's the one that has this little weird icon with a plus sign on it. That's not a real swatch that you can apply to anything, but if I double click on it, InDesign will open up the mixed ink group options dialog box, and now I can choose a new set of colors. I can also rename this group. You don't want to use group 1, that's not very descriptive. But I can say I want this to be black plus my warm red, the Pantone color I just added. And I'll change this to mixed black and red. I'll click OK, and you'll see that InDesign immediately goes through the whole document and changes all of those swatches for me. So, mixed ink groups, very, very helpful when you want a combination of colors. Now, of course, there are some cautions whenever working with spot colors. For example, spot colors don't always mix as well as process color inks, especially fluorescent and metallic spot colors. Also, you really cannot trust spot colors that you see on screen, even in a color-managed environment. The only way to get an accurate proof of a spot color is to see it on press. Nevertheless, if you're using any kind of spot color, you owe it to yourself to check out mixed ink swatches and mixed ink groups and get a wider range of colors for your document.